apply ourselves to acquire the vision, and as a result, we remain in the doldrums, so to speak, and but we can get out of the doldrums simply because we must be able to see people who we can emulate as to why are they seemingly up there and we are not, or seemingly why I'm not up there. And if we are able to emulate, take a page from that person or persons book and figure it out as to why they're there or up there or ahead of us, whether economically, socially, financially, academically, as the case might be. We have to learn to figure it out, because no man has a monopoly on education, on brain, ability, as the case might be. Hence, if one is up there, how did they get there? And if you were to trace lineage, you would find that some of them were born in abject poverty, but yet they find a way out of that situation simply by emulating someone who is supposedly above them, ahead of them, and as a result, if they are able to follow, emulate, they will get there. The first step in a long journey. A long journey begins with the first step. Heights of great men, the famous quotation, reach and kept, weren't attained by sudden flight. Weren't attained by sudden flight. But while the companions slept, they figured it out, and they kept climbing upward into the night. Meaning, you got to use your gray matter. You got to use all the senses that God has given to you. And as a result, you would have figured it out, and you would get there. I've been places, and when people ask me, how did you get here? I return and ask them, how did you get here also? But I know how they got there, and I know how I got there too. We have to begin to look at the systems that are put in place for the downcast of manhood, of human beings. And we have to attempt to eradicate those systems. There are set-aside programs to help certain people, well, even here in our nation. The PAP, or the Poverty Alleviation Program, has been put in place to help the less fortunate. But at a certain point in time, we have to begin to focus lazily as to how this program could get me to the next level. But some people would just take what the government is giving, set aside programs, and they do nothing to better themselves more than to be undertake. Even in the United States, the great United States, the Republicans sometimes want to eradicate or to cut off social welfare simply because it is a benefit to the black race more so. this Hispanic race more so than the whites. At the same time, the whites have been given certain applications, certain breaks, and therefore they know that they got certain breaks, and therefore they got to now pay back in return as part of the system. So we must be able to be lazily focused as to how to get out of poverty, how to get an education, how to learn a trade. These are the pillars or the ladder on which people must climb to get out of their precarious, downtrodden situations. And if they were to listen and learn, they would be able to get to the next level, as I said before. It takes effort. And the palm or the trophy is not gained without a tremendous amount of effort. And there are people, we could remember the biblical story of the lady who went to the well and left her clothing there and said, God is going to help her. Well, it doesn't work that way, unfortunately, unless it is a miracle. So eventually, she was able to figure it out. And I'm certain that she had to wash her clothes herself. But like I said, where there is a will, there is a way. And many of us caught in that trap of poverty have not yet figured it out. Still waiting for it to be figured out for them. But the government has a responsibility to continue to put programs in place like scholarships. Again, I mentioned the poverty alleviation program and a host of other programs put in place. The AVEC, where young boys could learn a trade, could learn a skill, but some just decided that they're not going to go that route and expect 10 years hence, 20 years hence, to be somewhere on the ladder of upward mobility. It doesn't work that way.
Yes, Mr. Stanley, but sometimes I think the way I'm reading you, that you're probably not dealing with a wholesome situation of mass alleviation. Of course, you speak a lot to me, individuals who would recognize, but if you look at it all, the heights that you're talking about is probably of being totally comfortable. But the masses are probably not even thinking that way, in a sense. Maybe they should be, but on a wider basis, in more general terms, how much really of the masses would achieve that exclusive success? It's there, but not much at all. You spoke of the caste system, and within the caste system, out of that comes a lot of things. Okay, out of that comes a lot of things. I am dealing with some people now, and I keep telling one of them that you're from a very intelligent family, and yes, I keep telling them that, because I know the family is very intelligent, but they were not able to achieve academically, okay, because of their circumstance, their perceive impoverishedness, not on a mental sense, but in real terms. And so these elements are sometimes difficult to really pinpoint. But this happens a lot in our society. I hope it's getting better. And I think it's getting better too. I think it's getting better. But quite recently still, I start meditate on what is really going on around here. And I ask myself, are they trying to develop a kind of political elite around here or what? And I know what I mean when I say that. I don't know who is tuning into places like what's going on in Lebanon, where the population now realize that doesn't matter who is in government, it seems like they run in a system to benefit themselves. I don't want us to go to that. I don't want us to get to that point. I don't want the population to start feeling that way. And that would be the act of those people in those higher places to prevent the people from start thinking that way. Watching the situation quite carefully, and I said to a friend, it looks like these people trying to develop a kind of political elite around here. It's okay, but it looks like I see lawyers filling up everywhere, things that other people intelligent to do, and of course a lawyer has a good profession. He or she is on our way to seeing some success, but I find they're still having them in places in government, in the House of Assembly and everywhere else. And believe me, I'm not talking about Nevis in particular, or what has recently happened, but I sense, and I hope not, that there is that political elite that's been developing. I wish that the political parties can look outside the box a little bit and engage people who are capable and who probably will serve well, and that job would be quite meaningful to them, as a responsible position, but I am not sure that what I'm seeing is going to work out well in the long run, in a sense. I'm wary. When I say wary, I'm frightened of this kind of political elite where people consultation doesn't take place. It all happens amongst them. Even though they might be the government and the opposition, they all seems to be playing the same game, and the masses is just a bunch of people who they rule. And of course, the belief that what is discussed and what is being the conversation is a little bit above the head of the masses, and so they can exchange what they're exchanging and say what they're saying without a great understanding coming from the masses, or any effort to really include the masses in a lot of decision-making process. What I'm talking about here, a government of consultation. I would like to see more of that, because Nevis is small, and even with the airport project and what is happening at the airport, I myself just listening, and I'm saying, well, I really hope then I'll go lease out this airport and thing, because of course there's one party that pushing something, and of course the island administration that is trying to do something. One of the things is that the people can get confused pretty easy, and the people can run off in thinking a certain way. I personally was keeping quiet and saying, well, I hope that's not the case, because we probably, the airport is ours, and somehow we have to remain a part of it. And I'm not saying whatever was happening, we would not have been a part of it. I'm just thinking to myself that we should not at all let go fully our grip on which something I consider to be our national asset.
Now, let me ask you this. If you lease something, you still own it?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes. But of course, lease sometimes quite long, you know.
Okay. So if you have something and you don't have the means to develop it, you must still keep it and don't, make any partnership or anything.
No. But arrangements can be made, you know. But I'm just telling you, it's a sensitive area. It's a sensitive area.
But I know. But that's why I'm asking the questions. So that if you're saying that you have something, you must not lease it, right? You got to be careful about partnerships you make, right?
Yes.
And stuff like that. So what should one do?
Oh, one should tread carefully. I'm not
But let me ask you this: can you not tread carefully and still lease something?
Oh, yes, you can.
Okay.
Yes, you can, Webbo. So certainly you can. But I am saying that I hope that wouldn't have been like the first option, you know, in a sense. And lease are very long. When one think of lease, one think of time involved, of course. A short lease, maybe okay, a long lease, you know, but it's a lot of back and forth as it relates to what the investors want and what the island administration wants for the benefit of Nevis, you know. And so that's why I say you got to tread carefully. And that's why I think, yes, people will be turned on by this issue. And my personal feeling is that whatever we do, we still have a major connection with what is going on.
So whatever we do, have a major connection, but at least do something.
Something has to be done.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me get a break.
Something has to be done.
This is Thought That Get Results. Your phone calls when we come back on 1-869-1616 and 1700. We'll be back after these.
Builders Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builders Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builders Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builders Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts or call them at 466-4938.
You're listening to Vaughn Radio from the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis.
Back on this episode of Thought That Get Results with Conrad Nye Liburn, Edric W. Stanley. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and 1700. Gentlemen, when you were here the last time, it was the results of the 2022 Nevis Island Assembly elections. Everybody remembers that. Since then, the opposition, the government has been formed. Has the opposition been formed? Edric?
Well, based on what I heard, they are still in disarray, unfortunately, because we have to have an opposition that can hold the government's feet to the fire. And if they're in disarray, they lack the capability of keeping the government or holding the government's feet to the fire. They can go off randomly, shooting at the same time. If they are not lazily focused, they would not be effective. You ask a poignant question, Webbo. Is the opposition organized? Well, these weren't your words, just that I'm adding my take based on how I've conceptualized your question. If they are in disarray, as we have heard in the trenches, it means that it would take some time before they reorganized and become effective to hold the government's feet to the fire. Now, we have heard, and I'm not fully aware if it is true, that Mrs. Simmons and Dr. Daniel Hodge are at odds with regard to certain protocols, and in that regard I understood that somebody was supposed to have been nominated in the House of Assembly, and that nomination has not come to fruition, simply because, again, as I have heard, they cannot agree as to who should be the nominee, and as a consequently, there is no senator on the opposition side. Well, this is, if it is true, it's a blatant disregard to the protocols as to the makeup of the House of Assembly. So I hope it is not true. I hope it is not true. If this is not true, then it should not be bandied around. But the reality has not come to fruition in terms of a nominee for the opposition, based on my understanding. And therefore, the House of Assembly on the opposition side, though it has two elected leaders, two elected parliamentarians, there should be a nominee confirmed and be sworn in and become part of the House of Assembly.
When you look at that, what is happening, you take an in-depth look of the different scenarios happening in government, out of government, in politics, not only in St. Kitts and Nevis but in the islands. What does it reflect? Does it reflect the society and who we are as a people?
Well, we cannot go outside our society and implement measures to benefit our society. So therefore, it's a reflection of our society, to answer your question pointedly. Now,
So-
the government has been formed, duly sworn in, and functioning. Hence, the opposition should get its act together, seemingly.
You would have expected that more so, Naya, if they were of different parties.
Yes, that would be expected if they were more. Not it would be expected, but that scenario would be easier digest. Easier be digested if it was from different party, like a coalition coming together or something like that.
Okay, so does it surprise you, or that it concerns you that they are of the same party, but yet they're not seemingly being able to come together?
Yes, it surprises me, Webbo, in a big way. Webbo, I like people who are willing to work together. I never feel like I used to play music, and I always used to tell people, I don't want to be a solo artist. I want to play the group. I want to play with the group, and I don't necessarily want to be the leader. I just want to work with the group. That attitude makes things happen easier. than an attitude where people are not working together. You know, working together is key to any progress, any development.
Working together makes things easier.
Yes.
But it's not easier to get people. It's easier to get people to work together. You agree with that?
It's difficult sometimes, you know, because what is in their minds is the big question. What is in their minds, really? Don't want to say too much, but if I believe if people are on their mind, they would get it together. You know, power is a different thing. Money is a different thing. To be a part of the elites is a different thing. But once you are driven by the concept of humanity, that should have been a very easy thing to iron out with a political party. And I say that very seriously, because I don't understand where the people are asking of you to represent them. And in that process, as a group, you are falling apart. I personally would have probably want to remove the element that is causing that division and debacle.
That means what? In language so that I can understand.
I say I personally, Webbo, would have want to remove the element that is causing this problem from the organization. This is Conrad Nile Library, you know, and it's not necessarily the of one radio. But I mean, I am not attached to anyone. Reading what I've been reading in the newspaper and all this, I find, you know, if we're working as a group and the baseman is causing problem, I'll have to drop him.
If it's proven that the baseman is the one causing the problem, can the baseman be correct and the guitarist and the saxophonist and the keyboardist be wrong?
You know, when the rules does not spell out the way things ought to go, majority rules. Majority rules. Easy. We are living in a democracy. You think we're from?
Yeah, the question I asked you though was, in a hypothetical situation, can the baseman be wrong, be correct?
Yes.
And the keyboardist and the saxophonist and the vocalist, who by that example form the majority,
yes,
can they be wrong?
It can, yes, yes. The baseman can be right and all is wrong.
And in that scenario though, if the baseman is in the minority but the baseman is right, would you still hold fast to removing what you perceive was the problem and therefore the baseman? Well,
it won't work if we don't yield to the majority, even if it's short term, until other things are organized.
It is fair to conclude, based on your philosophy and your thinking, even if the majority is proven to be correct, proven to be wrong, still yield.
Yes.
Edric.
Yes.
Categorically no. If the baseman is proven to be correct, what needs for him is to be able to convince the others. Try and try and try again to convince the others.
And therefore, try again will take time?
Obviously.
Okay. So that in that situation, persons must be patient.
Quite so.
But that's exactly what I said. Even if you'll have to work for a short time, patience must be exercised in every way.
Well,
sometimes you have to give. Sometimes you have to give. Sometimes you have to lose in order to gain.
A timeline should not be exerted as a result of the subject matter.
Most of the times when we have such issues, do we have characteristics or characters or personalities at play?
Yes.
And if a person is of a certain character, which was built up over years, could that easily change overnight?
Definitely not. Most definitely not.
So that can play a very important part into whether or not you can get a compromise easily or not.
Well, based on this subject matter, it's not easy to get a compromise when you got a majority who is dead wrong, and therefore the minority is logically right. No matter how you turn it, based on logic. And therefore the minority must stand his ground or her ground. If there are numbers making up the minority and you got numbers making up the majority, again, they should stand their ground once they are logically correct. Webbo.
Webbo, it's
The science of reasoning is logic. And if the science of reasoning proves that that baseman is correct, it would be foolhardy for him to give up his right, knowing that he's right, from a logical conclusion to join with the majority, because ultimately you'll be going down a rabbit hole from which there might be no return. The majority is not always right.
What happens, Edric, if going forward this issue of determining who is the opposition leader in the House of Assembly is not settled? What happens going forward?
Then you got confusion in that camp, but at the same time the work of the people must go on. How do they arrive at some unison with reference to the opposition leadership? The person who would carry the mantle as the opposition leader. If there is no unison, I do not know what the rule of the House says or the rules say. But if there is no agreement in terms of the opposition leader, then again I have no idea what the rules of the House says. But
the Constitution suggests that the leader of the opposition shall be the person who commands the majority of the support of the members of parliament who do not support the government. Right? So
but in this case, Webbo, you have only 1 and 1 and 2, and I'm not going to support you and you're not going to support me, so then there's a stalemate. Go ahead, Webbo. Go ahead, Webbo.
Now you wanted to comment?
not really at this point.
So I know that when we had the debate and the discussion in reference to the federal house, that particular, and maybe I should grab my constitution, but that particular
scenario,
that particular line in the Constitution read something to the effect that the Governor General shall appoint the person who, in his judgment, commands the majority of the support. Now, what I was thinking and wondering if this applies in the same situation, and what if the person, be it the Deputy Governor General, the Governor General, whoever, if it says that they who appear by whatever medium they were advised appoints the person to be the leader. So, can it get out of the realm of one person having to say that, well, I support this person or not? So I'm just wondering if basically it come to that, or if nobody says I'm supporting this person, if you just continue for the duration of that parliament, for the 5 years or whatever, however long it lasts, without an opposition leader per se, but you continue the normal work of the parliament.
Well,
because the two persons who are elected currently on the opposition benches, right, they are properly elected.
yeah.
And they will serve. And you do not serve in the parliament under the heading of a party. You serve as a representative
Of the parliament.
of whether it be Nevis 1, Nevis 2, Nevis 3, Nevis 4, Nevis 5. You do not serve as a CCM member or NRP member or MRM or independent. You serve as a representative of those 5 constituents.
Quite so.
What seemingly has been happening of late is that we've been having a lot of instances which are not the norm. There are a lot of things that are arising that are not the normal way of operation. That seems to be interesting.
Yeah, people must be getting brighter or something. I don't understand why it's becoming so complicated in terms of interpreting the Constitution. That this is sometimes the language are very clear. Yes, Webbo, I think the whole life of the Parliament can go on without they deciding who is the opposition leader, because the two of them in there, they still claim that they're from the same party, and of course they can have a unified front based on that. Of course, the opposition bench wouldn't be fully constituted, but it can, I suppose, work that way until the end of Parliament. To me, it represents a great unfortunacy with the party at this point in time. And
not reality?
beg your pardon?
You said a great unfortunacy?
Yeah. It is an unfortunate situation.
Right, I'm asking, and not a reality?
Well, it's reality because we're dealing, but it's unfortunate that they have to be doing this, because you see, it's where the public look at them. The public perception of their behavior is what is not good, you know. They would lose votes based on what is happening, believe it or not, they will, as a consequence. And so if I was them, I probably would have tried to clear up that as quick as possible. But they would be getting licks because of that problem that is so striking in the hearts of many.
But you know that both representatives, as I understand it, have been on the record by saying there's no problem. You're aware of that?
You're not aware of that? I'm not aware of that.
So if you were to learn that both are on the record as to saying there is no problem, then you will say what?
Well, we will say we probably won't believe that, innit? It's just an example of you trying to pull a bag over the public face. You have a problem. It's burst into the public domain, and how could you say there's no problem? that would be not good. That would be not good. See, honesty and being honest with the people, having the impression that you're organized, all these things counts in a big way. And little things like this will turn people around, really, to be honest. Yeah. Little things like this will turn voters around.
Well, the thing is that, as Webbo mentioned, that they are in the House of Assembly, not as NRP or CCM, but as members of the House of Assembly. The government on the one side, or on the one hand, and the opposition on the other hand. And therefore, if the Constitution gives the Governor General...
Okay, Edric, just let me take this, accommodate this caller. Good evening, you're on the air.
Good evening, Webbo.
Yes.
Isn't it interesting that the NRP won 2 seats? The two of them can come together as one. And you know, the ironic thing is, the leader was on a radio station today claiming that the NRP is the one who should be running the country. And they have 2 seats. And they can't come together. But they want to run the country. What do you think about that?
Naya, Edric?
Oh, well, that is not a good convincing. It doesn't. It's not convincing. The actions are not convincing. Put it that way, Carlo. Yeah, that's all I got to say in that regards. Because, as I said, this thing have bubbled into the public domain, and I've heard a lot of people start saying all kind of things. You know, say, oh, woman can't work together, and woman is this, that. I don't buy that type of stuff. I find it's probably not the time to be saying that until that issue is ironed out and the public can feel better about it.
Well, I'm not sure if I could take the caller's view as to one being on the radio station, on a radio station today, uttering certain things with reference to the management of the affairs of the country. But if I were to accept what he said as being factual, it says something quite negative with reference to leading, guiding, and managing the affairs of the country. If you can't manage a party which is smaller than the country, how could you be amplifying the fact that your party should be running the country?
Okay, caller, you there still?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. No,
Yeah, I thank Mr. Stanley for his explanation. If you cannot come together, I mean, this thing should have been done within their party. This has no right in the public domain. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good on their side. The optics is bad. The optics is bad. And then trying to convince people that something went wrong. And I mean, if something went wrong one way, it went wrong the other way. You see, it's that they are trying to challenge. What happened if the other party challenge the other seats? You see, it's that they won. I think we need to just accept things, elections as they go, unless you have a legitimate reason to be doubting.
But you would agree that the people who mount the petition, in their view, their reason is legitimate, right?
In their view,
Yeah.
but have they stated their view?
But, well, that will come in the details.
So how else should I judge them over?
What one may have to do is wait until the evidence comes in. You agree with that?
I totally agree with you.
Okay.
Totally agree with you. Have a good evening.
Okay. Yes.
Well, based on what I heard from Dr. Mark Brantley, the Premier, on the radio show, on his radio program, that they have not brought a charge at the court, and it is not laid in front of the judge or the court. Therefore, my recommendation is the very opening statement is to have the judge strike it out.
What do you mean they haven't brought a charge? They brought a charge. I think what, I don't know, but I think what Mr. Brantley might have said was that himself as a candidate and Mr. Brand as a candidate, the two persons who won the seats, who were declared the winners, there wasn't anything, accusation that they did anything wrong. I think that is what you were referring to?
Well, based on what I heard, and
I'm not debating or arguing what you heard, because I don't have your ears.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, I'm offering what Mr. Brantley said, because I say a lot of things and people hear something else different. That can happen. You agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not debating what you heard. I was just for the public trying to clarify what Mr. Brantley might have said.
Well,
that's fair?
Fair.
Okay. And so in the documents, the people have a complaint, but the complaint is not directly against Mr. Brantley and Mr. Brand. It is more so the electoral office and officer, the supervisor of elections, who was in charge of conducting the elections, and specifically Mr. Foy, who was the registration officer.
Quite so.
And that explanation by me is just by way of information for the public.
Well, I think you're correct, Webbo. Therefore, the petitioners who have petitioned the court should be told from the word go, you have no case.
So you figure that we've gone long enough for the night and you need a light moment?
Well, that's a part of being a practicing lawyer, not me, but Mr. Brantley and the others who are in the profession. They know what to say at certain juncture, and therefore don't prolong the thing. Let the judge know how you feel based on your training as a lawyer.
So that is why they have something scheduled for the 15th of February to flesh out what you're indicating. 1-869-469-1616170 if you like to be a part of the discussion. I don't know. Well, if you like to continue on that, but I don't know if you got any of last week's program. You were not here, but one of the things we were discussing was the carnival costumes, the Culturama costumes, because those have been subject of discussion for a few years now, just that we never really had a lengthy discussion on it here. And if you look on the wall there, Naya, you see a sample of some of these costumes, and part of the debate in the society is whether or not these costumes, skimpy as they are, should be displayed on the streets. There's a different debate as to whether or not they should be displayed elsewhere, in the clubs, in the homes, etc. But I think the fine print of the argument is in the public square. What's your quick view on that?
Webbo, I don't have a problem with it at all, actually. Obviously, there are codes of dressing that probably run across the globe, and these days we see certain people trying to dress a certain way and everywhere. But here in the Caribbean, I always say, this is the Caribbean, and the place is hot and whatever. I find, as a carnival costume, what I'm seeing on this poster is okay. It's okay. It's quite revealing, but I don't have a problem with it. To me, it's colorful. It's a part of the whole coming together of people in such a carnival and jubilating. Its colors exuberates something, Webbo.
So in essence, you look at the costumes and that's what you see. That's what stands out.
I almost see a beautiful garden. Among
Edric, when you look at the costumes, what do you see? What stand out?
Well, fortunately, I listened to the fellow you had on the program, and he holds his ground just like I would hold my ground with you being the moderator. At the same time, I'm going to go forward to what was said on the program, and I'm saying that, in my view, he is correct, and the standards that we have to hold dear, values we must hold dear, and consequently, they should not be certain attire based on the description that he gave. And now I'm looking at one little corner of the picture you have on the wall. Not the above portion, not the bottom portion, but one of the little corners you have there. And I would say, bring to the fore that the guest had a real issue, and I have an issue, because those attire shouldn't be part of the carnival.
Yes, go ahead, Naya.
But as I look at the poster, I see professional people here. The athlete is almost dressed in the same way in terms of revelation of his or her body. I see down here, I think these are gymnastics, and it's the same way. I mean, carnival to me reflects colors, and to me, what I see when I see people look and dress like that during carnival, it almost reminds me of a beautiful garden of flowers. To be quite honest, I mean, some people are moved by the skimpiness, and they can almost see the bodily parts. Sometimes, we are a bit too perverted, and it's just people who dress different to you sometimes. But as I said, the athletes, the Jamaican sprinter there, she's as skimpy as the lady in a carnival costume.
But that's interesting. So it comes down to, between the two of you, both look at an image, and two see quite differently. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Webbo?
Yes.
Just had a light point to make. I think the issue here is cultural costume against carnival costume. Culturama is not a carnival in the sense of historical display. So so you could base your comments around that. We have strayed from the ethos of Culturama. That is why we have those kind of costumes that you are commenting on. If we return to Culturama of 20 or even 15 years ago, 30 years ago, we will not have those costumes in the street. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Paul, but you see, part of the argument with that is not so much the costume as to whether they fit under Culturama or Carnival. The debate seems to be more of what it is revealing, right? But Naya is offering up a view that he is not seeing what Edric is seeing. He looks at the same thing and he sees something else different. So I find that's an interesting way. And just like I was telling Mr. Stanley, that I accept that I can say something or somebody says something, and Mr. Stanley says, but I heard something else different. So how are you going to reconcile that?
Well, sometimes it can be reconciled. Webbo. It has to remain that way until a certain number of people would see the view of one side, and a certain number of people would see the view or understand the view of the other side.
In your view and assessment, and if you think that these costumes or attire must not appear in the public square, who should make that decision?
One, the officials, and two,
Example.
whether the Carnival Committee or the Culturama Committee, and also once it is in the public square and a citizen can bring it to the fore and bring meaning and explanation and clarity to it, as your guest did, then on the one side you have a number of public people, we are members of the public, who would probably support.
Yeah, but who must make the decision? Who must decide what will be done and what should be done, what should not be done?
I'm coming to that, Webbo.
Oh, okay.
Well, let me come to that right now. The persons who should make the decision should be the officials in the two organizations.
And not the government?
The government doesn't, government could play a role, but the rules should be promulgated based on conduct, appearance, attire.
So let me ask you this. The government is the ultimate, should I say,
Lawmaker?
lawmaker or owner or boss of those particular events, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So you said the officials should. So if the officials were to make certain determinations and rulings, then the government will the exquisite authority. Can they overrule it?
Well, obviously, government has a certain amount of authority, jurisdictional authority.
Well, that is hence why I ask who should make the decision.
It's got to be the legislation, you know. They make a rule and
Well,
and you
Webbo,
gotta conform.
you seem to want to go to the government, and I'm saying to you,
No, I don't seem to want to go. What I do,
Well,
right?
here.
Walk with me. What I do, I ask questions that can lead to discussions and get answers, right?
quite
It's
so,
it's dangerous to always think that the questions I ask represent the views that I have on something.
all right, well, what I'm saying is that based on the jurisdictional authority, the government has the ultimate responsibility of the two systems to determine what is acceptable and what is not acceptable.
Okay, so therefore, the government then, as Mr. Astefan suggested, should have public discussions, entertain debate and stuff like that, and consequently make rules or a decision or determination?
Yes.
Okay, you see why I ask questions?
Well,
you see where we have arrived now?
Well,
work with me.
yes.
So that you now agree that the government as an institution, if a decision were to be made in terms of should or should not, the government should do that. Correct?
Well, yes, okay. At the same time, the government has the responsibility of allowing certain lower levels to make decisions. You cannot micromanage everything as a government. You're put there to make decisions.
So therefore it is fair to conclude rationally from what you said that the government has put these committees or whatever in place. The costumes as they are being allowed because they have been appearing carnival and cultural time after time after time. So therefore, as far as you're concerned, that settles it.
Well, ultimately the government has...
Work with me.
Yeah.
So, as far as you're concerned, right, based on what you just said, it is fair to conclude that you're okay with it because the government basically has settled it by appointing these people, and they, by their inaction or non-action, have allowed the thing to have gone on.
The non-action, inaction, or as the case might be, they allowed it to go on doesn't mean that it's right.
No, well,
And it doesn't mean that the government agrees with it.
but you just said that once they have these persons here and the persons
Doesn't mean that they make the right decision.
they'll continue. Go ahead.
My take is that the government has the ultimate decision, ultimate responsibility and authority. But it has delegated the decision-making process to be handled by the two committees. And it doesn't mean that the two committees would have made the right decision. So it reverts to the government.
Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, Webbo. Good evening to you all, the panelists.
Hi, good evening.
Sorry. Webbo, good evening.
Yes.
Sorry.
Good evening. Go
I
ahead.
was having a problem with my volume. I'm listening to you guys, and I'd like to ask a question. Who is the ultimate decision maker as to whether one has on appropriate wear when they're in the street, when they're outside of the confines of their homes or their private abode?
Government, I think.
Government
Yes.
or the police?
Well, the police is the government will put the law in place, and the police uphold the law, enforce or uphold the law.
So if someone comes down the street tomorrow wearing something that we may deem inappropriate, the police have to go and find the police. The police has to go and find the government to decide if they're going to apprehend this person and get them off the street.
No, the police is in this example, or this example called, the police is a representative of the government that makes the law and they enforcing what the governments make.
Yes.
Very interesting.
If somebody walks on the street naked, you will have to declare that person has to be crazy.
No, because you see, in this example that we're entering in, we have laws, right? Specific laws. And I think that when we had the discussion last week as well, Mr. Asavan had pointed out that there are laws in with regards to the code, the dress, and so on. You have things like that. I think maybe where we entered the gray area was whether or not under the umbrella of costumes and carnival and that act, whether or not one can argue that the dress code can kick in there. I don't know.
I believe the law still holds. I believe the law still holds, Webbo, because I believe the law only asks for something across your chest, I was told. I have not read into it deeply. That's what the law stipulates, something across your chest. That would be sufficient.
Webbo, and to your panelists as well. I hear the conversation, I hear the discussions about, especially after this last carnival. But the question I have, the big question I have is the dress inappropriate as much as what the persons do in that wear or in that costume?
You know, Carla, I think that was a part of the discussion as well, as to maybe the two, but I think the what maybe aggravates the situation for some people is the gesticulation and, as you say, what they do in the costumes. One thing having it on, and then the things that they suggest in it is another debate.
You see, I see a really fine line, because some of this dress, we may not see it if we're not out there, but some of this dress that we saw in the carnival happens every weekend in the nightclub.
Right,
from what I'm told.
but keep in mind, somewhere it is written, there's a time and place for everything.
Okay.
So in this debate, the argument is, zeroing in it, it's okay to have it, maybe some people argue in the nightclub, but should it be in the streets?
I'm not saying that it's right, but I've been to carnivals in quite a few different locations outside of Nevis and St. Kitts. And the dress is not any different. I have to admit that I saw some things in this last carnival in the streets that made me, my eyes open, wider. The thing is, though, where do we cross the fine line in telling people how they can dress? Should the carnival, the troops coordinators submit all of these costumes to the carnival committees prior to?
You know, Carla, that's an interesting question. I think last week when we were discussing it, one person made an interesting point in response to a question like that. The person says, in other areas of performance, the committee stipulates what ought to be done and what ought not to be done. So the question, it comes to say, well, why is it the committee is able to, in some instances and performances, saying that you can do this and you can't do that? Why can't they say in this particular case, then also you can do this and you can't do that?
Wow. Where are we heading? Where are we heading? Are we going to kill the spirit of carnival? Not only in those of us who say, oh, they shouldn't put on these costumes, but then also, what can people wear if it's carnival? What does carnival dictate? What are you trying to portray? It's unfortunate we've gone a long, long way off the tracks of culture. But
Well, how would you answer to that statement? We've gone long way off the tracks of culture. How you'll answer, respond to the argument that culture changes and evolves?
that's true. That's true. Growing up as a young girl here in Neversville, and even to this, until maybe a good 10, 15 years ago, the Culturama, and there are those who say that Culturama is different to Carnival. Costumes will dictate what our culture is all about. You're not seeing that much anymore. You're seeing more Carnival type costumes at Culturama
So then,
than
is
you've
it?
ever seen before.
But can we not then agree that because that is what the change in culture has become?
Okay. Yes, I guess that's a point that can be raised.
You
What
think?
does-
Let me ask you, caller, and the panel. You think perhaps a few years from now, most of the people looking at those costumes will see what Naya sees and not more so what Edric sees? Because Edric is seeing one thing which gets him a little irate. Naya is seeing something else what Edric does not see. So you think in the next few years we can look at the same costume and don't see the thing that make people irate?
Well, let me just say this, huh? When I go out to watch the Carnival parade, or even if I turn it on YouTube, or whatever station is bringing it live, I'm looking at the costumes, the color, the glitter, and all of that. I'm not looking to see how someone dresses below their waist. I really am not. I hardly pay attention to that. I see it, I accept it as part of Carnival, but I'm looking at the splendor and the beauty of who created this and what does it mean, and the feathers and all of that stuff. So whatever it is, it's in the eye of the beholder and the person looking at it. And unfortunately, or fortunately, if what most of the masses of the people want is to see what they're seeing now, I'm not sure that's going to change.
Okay. All right.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
How about that, Edric? You think maybe in time to come, in years to come, you might end up looking at the same picture and don't see what you just saw, but more what Naya and the caller are seeing?
Once those people have in them the creativity, the design, ultimately, what I'm seeing now, I'll see it hence.
Good evening, thank you for holding.
Good night, you're on the program, please.
You're on the program, please.
Thanks a lot. I want to ask a scenario to you all. I have two hosts there, and they have different opinions. Look at it this way. You have a container, but the contents of that and the container beautiful become like Mr. Noya said, like a beautiful garden. But look at the content. Because what the reveler revealing, it's like, but look, then you got a next container, it start peeling to the eyes. But the contents of that container is totally different. We have children who are going to be inhaling that fragrance, what they are seeing. So then what they can walk away with. Take your children. I've been taking part in Carnival for 50 years now, right? And I went for the first day and I could never go back the second day. I just take part for the whole of the first day. Little children, 4-year-old children in clown suits, and big women in clown suits, and look at how they behaving, these children watching. The parents had to take, some parents take the children away from what was going on. Women lying on the ground, the man walking on them, kneeling on the street, and the man, it's like how that could be. And when you look at it, right, I see a kind of medication to get treated, right? Are these women sexually satisfied with the men that's how they behave on the street? You may see not Spanish woman behave on the street, but with the locals. It's supposed to be. That no man. I hear it talk about culture evolves. Culture does not evolve. The minds of the people evolve. Culture remains culture. Clown, we've been playing clown now for 50 years. We had 2 years, we had the shutdown where we didn't take part. But we still clown still remain the same. We got the hunter, we have the mask, we have the hat. It's like, hey, wow.
So, caller, might I ask you a question?
Of course you can.
You said you've been playing clowns for 50 years, and you also indicate that you see some big women also playing clown, walking on the children, things that you would disapprove of, right? You mentioned that?
Yeah.
As I said to you, right?
No.
I cannot,
Right, so
cannot approve of what took place. Not
right,
me.
so what I'm saying...
Carnival, let me just...
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
So Kiddies Carnival. No clowns on the street. We had the time for the children to take part in Carnival. And it was prevented. But for the big parade now, they just to put little children going deck here. In between them kind of behavior.
Right.
How could that be?
Right, but you said you played clown for 50 years and you do not behave like that. That's what you said, right?
We never see that at all.
Right, but could it be that these other clowns that you're seeing, they're not really playing clowns, they're real clowns?
People in clown suit and they can't perform the clown dance.
Okay.
I started this when I was 10 years back in 1970. You understand what I'm speaking of?
I got you.
So I got experience. I could at least I taught this thing in schools also. I could tell people. So then, we can't tolerate that, man.
So for you, it isn't so much even the costume, because a clown costume covers most of the body. You agree with that?
Yes, that is a.
But yours was the
container is different to the container.
Right. So it's what they were doing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because the difference, because as I said, a container might not be appealing to the eye, but you have in a healthy drink.
Okay.
But the next container, very appealing to the eye by dying poison.
Okay, I got you.
Respect, man.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, one thing the caller make a good point there, you know. Sometimes you got to be mindful of the kids. You cannot have any strict rule that, you know, that kids don't go to the big people parade. I guess all that would be breached pretty easily. But I think he made the point very solid that it's people's behavior. It's a great concern, and probably not the way they dress, because it's artistry in the way they dress too. It's body art, you know, and
but it can combine to Naya, because the way you dress and what you expose, and then the gesticulation, yes, with it goes together.
It blows the fuse right there.
It blows the fuse.
This is Stanley. But I cannot imagine carnival, and you know, people talk about this cultural thing and so forth. It brings some spice to the culture too. And I want to make the point, you know, a long time people are just like this, you know. Enough times, a long time ago, it's not only on a festive occasion. Some people back in the past I mean, you see things like thongs and G-string and so forth. People have been wearing them quite normally and openly long time ago. Long time ago. You know, and then what we are talking about them now. Isn't it the state of our mind and the increased pervertness that is influenced by so many things happening around us? Because in the past, we know, I mean, even if you still go to Dominica and you look at the Caribs and the Arawaks, they wear nothing. Well, the Caribs, you know. So, and it happened in various regions of the world. And it's quite normal, you know, quite revealing the things they wear quite, you know, on an everyday basis. Of course, they not have such gesticulation, because what I'm seeing now, I mean, you see things happening in the street and you wonder if these people are really having sex or are they not. You have to look really, you know, carefully to find out the way they do things these days. I think that is not really good for the younger ones, the kids, to be quite honest. They will have to find a ways and means.
But some people are of the view, though, that regardless to what you wear, regardless to how you behave or gesticulate and so on, no one should be able to legislate that or tell them what to do or what not to do.
Well, I think they can legislate as to, you know, your degree of clotheslessness, but in terms of your behavior, unless you have some kind of social destructive element, I'm not sure how much you can do about that. And I think what they claim to be doing is not a destructive in a physical sense or in an immediate sense, I suppose, even though, you know.
Well,
about the kids.
As you debate this, though, the question can well come. Who determines exactly what, just like the laws that they have on the books, which suggest your attire and how you should dress and stuff like that. Some people are probably arguing that those laws should never exist and that a person should just free, they're using this word free, and just free up themselves and freedom and be free. So what will that do for society that because, you know, in societies, what you have to do, you know, you have to create structure.
Yes.
Otherwise, you'll have chaos. Edric, you agree with that?
Yes. You have to have structure, as you mentioned. At the same time, laws are put together and promulgated and enforced to bring about a certain order. And if you don't have those laws in place, people will do what they want, how they want, when they want, and ultimately you have no structure, you have no rules, and therefore you can't be governed properly. So people come here, there are tourists who would come here, and some of them walk the streets and they're told you have to have a certain type of dress code, follow certain rules at the same time. If you dress a certain way, you might invite someone to violate your space, which ultimately becomes the responsibility of our government to put structures in place so that people will be governed by those structures, dress codes and the like.
Well, you know, the human rights thing is causing a lot of situations. They say human rights, because I've been to places in England, May Day, Carnival in Brixton, and everybody's naked. They have on socks and shoes and they don't have on no clothes.
Yeah. Really?
Of course. In England, I mean, that's not anything. You know, I've been there, you know, in Brixton, and it's like they are defending their human rights. They think they have a right to walk without clothes. And so you go there and so many people without clothes. what is laughable to me is that they have on socks and shoes, you know. Yes, Webbo. So I mean, human rights will have a role to play in deciding that in today's world, you know.
Well, I again ask a question that in terms of the point that Naya just brought up, is it possible that we can get to the stage that people will wear these costumes as skimpy as possible, and then over time they pass and you don't even notice
it becomes the norm to us.
Yeah.
And they
so
get more extreme, and we probably have to adjust our consciousness to that extreme again. And they would continue until the law stops them, because there's a law in place that you cannot simply walk naked.
Yeah, but then you may not have to put a law in place, because to go back to the point that you made again, Naya, you look at the costume and you see gleam and glitter. Edric looks at it and sees something that he does not want to express here. But in time to come, Edric may well look at it and see only gleam and glitter as well. And maybe after a while the people realize that he's not seeing what they want him to see, so then maybe this is.
No, let me say this: the church, which is an institution based on spirituality and morality, and in my view, based on the fact that I grew up in the church, I am guided by those structures.
So you think the church should have weighed in already on this?
Long time ago. Long time.
So you think they should have written a letter to somebody?
Sure. On the program, I think was Pastor Maynard who called in and put his 2 cents in, and his repugnance to the whole idea based on what the guest mentioned, and therefore the whole thing was brought, the harsh reality of the whole thing was brought front and center with reference to Pastor Maynard. And therefore he expressed his repugnance.
And that is what a good debate is all about, and a good debate helps shape a society.
Yes, certainly.
This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community, talk that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.